Hello, Jason. It's Tuesday, February 25th, and I have a bone to pick with the Weather Network. The weather was looking really nice, and I was supposed to get out to get some running done, but, instead, this. I want to start off today by talking about the same thing you talked about in your last video, the Winter Olympics. Specifically, a short list of the highlights that I enjoyed at this year's Olympics. I'll start off, as people usually do, at the beginning, with the first medals that really impressed me, and those are the ones in the men's and women's moguls. In particular, I was impressed with the women's moguls, where not one, not two, but 3 sisters were ranked amongst the world's best. And with all this press going on for Justine and Chloe, I'd like to take a minute to congratulate Maxime on her efforts. After all, she's still one of the best in the world at what she does. I also want to point out Mikhail Kingsbury, who got silver in the men's moguls. As I'm sure you've already heard a million times in those Canadian athlete highlights that they played during the Olympics, he was in the crowd when Alex Bilodeau won his gold medal in 2010. And, inspired by the victory, he decided to make preparation for the 2014 Olympics a priority. A decision which, with silver medal in hand, I don't think he regrets. I also enjoyed watching the women's curling a lot more than watching the men's, and that's because they went the entire tournament undefeated. Something which has never happened before in women's Olympic curling. So they definitely deserve a huge round of applause for their efforts. And I'm sure those gold medals help too. I was also much more impressed by the women's hockey than I was by the men's. And to be honest, a lot of the reason why I wasn't so excited for the men's hockey was because of Russia's early defeat. I mean, can you imagine how exciting it would be to watch Canada defeat the US and then 2 days later have to face off against another one of their arch rivals, Russia? Not that their actual final match wasn't still exciting, it's just, it could have been a lot better for the viewers, I think. But then there were the women, and oh what a game it was. I have to admit that while watching the majority of the women's gold medal hockey game, I was kind of somber. I mean, when the US scored their first goal, I thought, oh great, we'll just have to catch up. But then they scored their second one, and I thought, this isn't looking so good. So by the time the third period started, I said to myself, if the US score another goal, or we haven't scored a goal by the 4-minute mark, I'm not watching anymore. I just couldn't stand to see us lose. And so the 4-minute mark did roll up, and I stood up, and I walked out of the room, but I left the TV on, and I'm really glad I did. Because, from the other room, while petting my dog and heading towards the stairs to go up and use my computer, all I heard was, "Goal!" And I have to tell you that if our running challenge was for speed, not distance, I would have won then and there. So with just over 3 minutes left in the third period, we only had to make up one more goal, and I thought, it's not impossible, it's not impossible, it's not impossible. And it wasn't impossible. We did it, and we went to overtime where we won. Now, I will admit that the penalty that led to our winning was slightly questionable. But at the end of the day, I agree with what the majority of the commentators were saying anyway, that it would have ended the same way with a penalty shot instead of just a penalty. And while it doesn't quite match the level of epicness that I experienced in 2010 with Crosby's overtime goal to win the gold, it was still a really, really, really big highlight for women's hockey. And I agree with you, Jason. I hope we get to see a lot more mainstream women's hockey in the near future. So those were some of my favorite moments from the Olympic Winter Games, and I encourage anyone watching to leave comments either here or on our Facebook page about their favorite moments as well. We want to know. We're interested. Please talk to us. But, with all said and done, it's time to crunch the numbers, but I'm not going to crunch them the usual way. I find it interesting that a lot of the time the bigger countries win a lot more medals because, quite frankly, they have more people. And so I looked at the top 5 countries in medal count and determined what their medal wins are per capita. The lowest per capita medal count of this group is the USA, with 28 medals in 313.9 million people, which comes out to 0.08 times 10 to the negative 6 medals per capita. Next is Russia with 33 medals at 143.5 million people, which calculates to nearly triple what the US had with 0.23 times 10 to the negative 6 medals per capita. And then there's us, Canada, with 25 medals at 34.88 million people, which is slightly more than triple what Russia had at 0.72 times 10 to the negative 6 medals per capita. But now we have to really start talking about the heavy hitters. The Netherlands, with 24 medals and 16.77 million people, got 1.43 times 10 to the negative 6 medals per capita. That's impressive. But not nearly as impressive as Norway, who got 26 medals for 5.02 million people, or 5.18 times 10 to the negative 6 medals per capita. Which means in Norway, Winter Olympic medalists aren't 1 in a million, they're slightly more than 5 in a million. So as you can see, if we measure Winter Olympic success differently, we come up with a different result. 0.08, 5.18. Different. So that about wraps up Olympic discussion, I think, which means it's time to move on to something else. More Oscar predictions. Now, because of the extremely limited time between now and the actual Oscars, I'm going to make 6 predictions today, leaving only the big categories for me to predict on Thursday. So without further ado, Best Adapted Screenplay. The Wolf of Wall Street. Best Original Screenplay. Nebraska. Best Original Song. Ordinary Love for Mandela by U2. Best Original Score. The Book Thief, score by John Williams. Best Supporting Actor. Jared Leto in Dallas Buyers Club. Best Supporting Actress. Jennifer Lawrence in American Hustle. Oh yeah, you wanted reasons, didn't you? Well, here they are, in order. It took a boring book and made it exciting. It took an exciting story and made it boring. It took the sadness of the passing of one of the world's most beloved political figures and put it into a song that still sounds exciting. It took the sadness of the passing of several million Jews in Nazi Germany and made it, well, you can really only go with sad on that one. To be honest, the field was thin and Jared Leto was genuinely impressive in his role in the movie. And not only is Jennifer Lawrence a crowd pleaser, but you just don't bet against Jennifer Lawrence. So, if I've done my calculations right, that leaves Best Actor and Best Actress in a Lead Role, Best Director, and Best Picture, for which you'll hear my predictions on Thursday. And so now for chess, knight from h7 to g5. What do your simulations have to say about that? Also, I'll be adding a special bonus segment at the end of every video for the foreseeable future because I've started doing a puzzle, and I want to see how long it takes before someone guesses what the picture is. So if you think you know, as usual, leave it in a comment on the video or on our Facebook page and I'll let you know if you're correct.